Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about the price you pay. It would appear that in both the physical and metaphysical world, there's no such thing as a free lunch. The entity known as Ra once said that all souls who incarnate in third density are sacrificing themselves for transformation, and that there is no act of service to others or self which does not bear a price commensurate with its purity. What's the price we pay for the privilege of incarnating on planet Earth? And what do we get in return? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong. I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We also have a Facebook group, and we meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty. Just go to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions with Jim. As mentioned, the topic for today is the price you pay. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy. I'm calling from Cornwall in southwest England, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming back. It's always fun hanging out with you. And Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm calling from the Detroit area, Michigan, and I'm really excited to be back.
So excited to have you back. Always fun hanging out with you. I did want to remind our viewers, as always, that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We are just run-of-the-mill wanderers like you, trying to figure shit out as well, and just sharing our opinions. Anything that any of us say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you are familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on the Pearl of Great Price. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one, and that one thing is love. All of the reading passages we're looking at today came to us through a process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. And in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, subconscious or unconscious, as if asleep, meaning they are not at all aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to today. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities and dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of fire, earth, air, and water have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous cultures have been saying they do for centuries. We refer to that as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Clearly a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind. Clearly, a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth and sixth density as whatever would be comparable quantum leaps beyond that. There's much more that could be said on the subject, and if you're interested, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL Research Channeling Team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then up to the present day by the LNL Research Channeling Team. Session transcripts can be found in the LNL Research Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at a couple passages at what has been referred to as the Pearl of Great Price. On March 11th, 1990, Quo said, "The illusion which you inhabit is one constructed for the exercise of the conscious mind that has been, shall we say, insulated from the nurturing and informing qualities of the subconscious mind, in order that the choices made by the conscious mind might carry more weight in the process of polarization within the totality of one's being than would be possible if there were completely open and free access by the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. The ease of such an interaction would not provide the difficulty necessary to provide the pearl of great price, shall we say. To any seeking entity, treasures long sought for are far more valued than that which is easily won. And your illusion, my sister, is one in which each choice made is one step farther along the great journey of evolution, which each of us finds ourselves moving upon." Pearl of great price, I believe, is a literary phrase, metaphor that I believe is used in the Bible and comes up many, many different times in channeling sessions. We're just looking at a couple passages, but really like what's said here, that anything that is long sought and hard fought for is of more value than something that's easily won. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, I just like, for fuck's sake, like what's wrong with us? Why don't we not value things that come easily? Why is it that we only value things when we have to work for it? And the working is so difficult as well, like, and at the end of the day, like I see a lot of people working so hard to gain validation, to be admired, to be, looking for adoration, and that's something like that we actually have to work for. But then the things that we don't have to work for, on the other hand, like love, like we can take love for granted, really, because we're deserving of love. And things like water and air and nature, like we just take for granted because it's just like there for us. So there's this irony there. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is ironic for sure. And I think, I don't know, as you're speaking, I'm just reminded of the experiences I've had where I gained the most from them and became a significantly better person and less of an a-hole than I used to be. And those were generally through difficult experiences. I think I have found the things that are really best that I like in my life did not necessarily come easy. It came with some effort and struggle. I don't know. What do you think, Michael? Any thoughts on that or anything else?
No, absolutely. I loved what Andy had to say about that. When I read this, it's it kind of explains right there just why we're veiled, why all we can deal with is the conscious mind, and the subconscious and the unconscious is veiled to us. Because were we able to see all the outcomes of what choice we would make, it would no longer be a pearl of great price. It would be a penny of low value. because it's so easy to do. But that's what makes it so lucky that we're in third density, and why we should be so grateful for this, because we find this nowhere else.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be exploring the conscious, subconscious, unconscious mind later. But yeah, I really do find it fascinating how they're framing it in terms of the conscious mind not being able to access what's in the subconscious mind. Since I think, as like you're saying, if it was easy to get, then it really wouldn't be of that value, because it was just handed to you. I guess kind of like a open book test versus a closed book test, I suppose.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. We do have another passage, I believe, that speaks more to the veil of forgetting. Anybody have anything else to add on this passage before we look at another one? Let's take a look at this one. This was from April 16th, 2016, and Quo said, "The veil of forgetting is very helpful for the third density entity, for it allows you to have experiences that would not be as likely to have in the higher densities. For in the higher densities, you are quite aware of the unity of all creation, of the love that is the energizing force of all creation. But in that particular type of environment, it is oftentimes more difficult to find a reason to move from the perfection in which you exist into new expressions of your own being. Thus, the third density, where you forget that perfection, offers you the opportunity to move into more intense polarization, shall we say, more intense expressions of the love vibration as you respond to the difficulties in your own life experience. The problems and the challenges of your life experience are those gifts that allow you to call upon the spiritual nature of your own being in order to solve them, to balance them, and to internalize the love and light that you find all about you. Yes, you shall find the higher densities offer you more experience within the spiritual realms and the metaphysical realms, but forget not the great offering and treasure of the third density, for it allows you to find that which is the pearl of great price, within an illusion which seems to contain very little of beauty for many at this time." Really love this passage. There are so many little bits and gems of love and wisdom to uncover here. I think the thing that stands out the most to me in the first paragraph is that in the higher densities, you're aware of the unity of all creation and everything. So it's oftentimes more difficult to find a reason to move from that perfection in which you exist into new expressions of your own being. What I'm getting from that is that it's like being in paradise, and that people who live in paradise really don't feel any great incentive to leave paradise to go for something else, that they don't even know what's out there. That's what I'm getting from it. What do you think, Michael? Any thoughts on that or anything else in this passage?
Oh, absolutely. I love that first passage. I really especially love the second passage. It reminds us that in third density, this is where we get to love very deeply,
Yeah.
because we fear that loss. We have that fear of loss. And that depth of love that we can get here, we can't find that. Not that we don't love in other densities, but not at that depth, not at that. I don't know. I love that paragraph. I really do.
Yeah, and especially since it's hidden from you, because we generally can't see anything other than the superficial physical appearance that we see on camera or in the mirror, and don't even realize that there's so much more beyond that, for sure. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on that or anything else here?
Yeah, I also wonder if, it's like a test, like when you know everything, you know, you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk given the situation? It's like the difference between theory and practice. You can have the theory and the knowledge, but how deep is that? And I think the veiling allows us to test that and to know it at an experiential level rather than an intellectual level, I suppose. Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's all about the experience. And I think perhaps that would be an answer to the question of that we get of what do we get out of this, out of paying the admission ticket? Well, the chance that we get for the privilege of incarnating on Earth is an opportunity to make a quantum leap in your spiritual evolution that would be really difficult to make at the higher densities where you already know all the answers, everything. We're given the opportunity to see if we can pass that same test with the closed book where we don't see all the answers. And that's something.
Absolutely. I think this whole paragraph right here, or this whole reading right here, is just Quo reminding us how grateful we should be. I honestly do. I mean, it really does in a way.
Yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, easy for you to say. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's the one line at the very end that I thought was just so beautiful, that you will find the higher densities offer you more experience and opportunities, but don't forget the great offering and treasure of third density, for it allows you to find that which is the pearl of great price within an illusion which seems to contain very little of beauty for many at this time. I think that's such a beautiful way to phrase it, that the ability to see beauty in a world that it's not really all that obvious, that is a big challenge and a big struggle, and that is how you get the treasure, the pearl of great price, I think.
Love at all things.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I'm always reminded when I read these that the person who said these words really didn't know what they were saying. It's kind of like they were talking in their sleep, and they were vaguely aware of what words were coming out because they were getting them a bit at a time from what they believed to be an extraterrestrial entity. But they didn't know that it was going to look like this or sound like this. And they're just so beautiful and so poetic. Really love. Anyone else have any other thoughts on this passage?
No.
Well, let's take a look at a passage on price and purity. This is actually from Latwii, who is 1/3 of the Quo group entity. And this was from July 18th, 1982. Latwii said, "The burden of the seeker is that it shall bear the responsibility for the purity of its seeking. The path in union with the one Creator is a path which is hard won, the traveling of which is not always easy. The pearl of great price, as it has been called, has as its price the constant seeking and the constant choosing to be of that positive polarity. To refine the seeking to the purity necessary to achieve the pearl requires that there be the constant opportunity to have a choice, the constant opposing force, shall we say, against wish to push. It is a testing, it is a choosing, it is a seeking and a refining. And those of the positive path rejoice in this process, for each opposing force which acts within the life of the seeker presents yet one more opportunity to increase the desire to seek the truth. If there were no force against which to push, there would be no motion, no movement, no evolution. Rejoice then, my friends, for your opportunities of seeking are greatly enhanced, yet you must bear the responsibility of this seeking and of the increased opportunities." It looks like Latwii is jumping on the bandwagon that Michael referred to and saying, you guys should be grateful for these opportunities. You are so lucky to be suffering as you are. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything here?
It's just so many questions. I mean, when they say choice, what are we choosing? You know, and is it a choice between two options, or is it a choice, you know, from multiple options? And ultimately, I've thought about this a lot recently, you know, like who is making that choice? What are we? You know, like, are we a combination of just the chemicals in our brains? And, you know, when we think we're making the choice, who is making the choice? Is it you know, we've got all this conditioning that influences it. There's like people with ADHD who take medication and that influences, like, so, like, who is and what is
Are you
making the choice?
questioning whether you in fact have free will, Andy?
Yeah, I guess so, you know. And also, um and this price that we pay, what are we paying with if nothing is real, right? If it's all an illusion, we're just giving up an illusion anyway. So this illusion, which is not real, is the price that we're paying. So the price that the sacrifice we make isn't actually worth anything because it's not real anyway. So is it a sacrifice? I don't know.
Wow. Deep questions. I'm going to toss the ball to Michael. What do you think, Michael? Got any answers for Andy?
Yeah, no, those are some great questions. I don't have many answers for that as far as I think it's both. I think rather than one or the other, I think it's both, at some level. I'll tell you what, I love Latwii. I really do. I think I can't remember if was it Austin who said she sounded very sexual, or
Really?
very. I can't remember who it was. It was either Austin, maybe it was Gary.
I think it
But
was Gary. He
was it
did
Gary
at
that
one
said that?
time describe Latwii as sexy, which I'm sure Latwii appreciated for sure.
She seems very feline too. For some reason, I just get this
Oh,
feline mixed up
interesting.
whenever I think of her. She seems very feline.
Oh,
But
interesting. I've always thought of Latwii as a male entity, if
really,
it's one or the
really,
other.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have. Yeah. What do you think, Andy? It never even occurred to me to think
Uh,
that.
I don't, for me, Latwii is like the naughty kid in the class, who's like joking around all the time. And I went to both a co-ed and a girls' school, and there's one of those characters in every class, I think. So
Yeah.
I've never thought of Latwii as either male or female. It's just the naughty, cheeky kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you
Yeah,
go.
I have
There
a
you have it.
feeling this is going to come up in a channeling at some point
Yeah.
out there. But
What are your pronouns? Yeah. Yeah. They and
um,
it.
boy, yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It sounds like she's saying, to show that gratitude, that gratitude for all that, because and also she speaks of the law of responsibility here.
Yes.
That law of once that catalyst is put in front of you, unless you will face it in that way you need to, it'll just keep repeating that pattern because what would be the point of moving you forward?
Yeah.
Um, and as far as, and I was also thinking also on what Andy said about if it's not real, then what's the point? But it is real. And that's the veil. And that's what makes it real, even though it's not real and it is just a game. And at the end, we put our toys away and the sand castles get knocked over and we come back and we do it again. At that point, it is real. At least to me, it
Yeah.
feels real. My
It's real
daughter,
in the sense that it has consequences. The
I
choices
have a
that you
daughter
make,
that
real or not,
does,
do have consequences. Yeah.
and it does feel real, even though I
Yeah,
now I know that it's when, or at least I have an idea more of what it is.
for sure. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the law of responsibility because I think that's the first thing that came to mind as Andy was asking questions about what choices are we referring to and who's making that choice. I believe viewers check out the podcast episode on the law of responsibility for more details. But otherwise, no, I think they have made it clear that each of us every day, you probably could say every moment of every day, we're given choices between choosing what we perceive to be the path of service to self or the path of service to others, the positive or negative path. And I don't think anyone else is choosing other than we are to whatever we think is supposedly the positive path. I think that's what they're saying. If you have committed to the positive path, well, then you have multiple opportunities every day to choose between what appears to be the positive and negative path. I don't know. What do you think about that, Andy? Does that make sense to you? Do you see things similarly, differently?
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't understand. Like, is there like when I meditate on it, it just seems like the kind of more mundane things, the choosing isn't always up to me, but the only thing that I'm actually choosing is where to place my consciousness, if that makes sense. So like when I go and pour myself a drink, for instance, it's like who's choosing to pour the drink? Is it the body that's thirsty and has a need and you know and but if I come down to like this me that is just like pure essence, that what choice is that essence making? I don't even know if I'm making sense. Am I making sense?
Oh,
And
no,
that,
either way, it sounds like it's still you, whether it's your body
yeah,
or your mind or your spirit. It's still you, as opposed to me, who's making those choices, or anyone else.
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, so there's like the kind of mundane choosing to pour myself a drink, but then there's also choose choosing to observe me choosing to pour the drink. If that make Does that make sense? I
No, it
don't
does.
know.
You know, a lot
So
of
there's
people
like
can't
two
do that.
layers of
A,
choices
a
there.
lot a lot of people can't do that. They can't watch themselves make a choice. They can't separate that part of themselves. So that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of ways to look at it. For me, it often comes down to not so much choosing service to others or service to self, but choosing, say, a more loving response compared to a less loving response. So, I mean, that comes up in every interaction with literally every other person I am interacting with in terms of choosing how I respond and what words I use, or responding to some news of the political arena. I have a choice whether to respond that in a loving way or a unloving way, and that's something I'm struggling with every day.
Yeah.
Really great discussion, and certainly we could easily spend another hour talking about that, but I think I wanted to take a look at some other passages. Does anyone have anything else to say about this passage before we look at something else? Sounds good. Well, let's take a look at a couple passages on sacrifice and the archetypical mind. Viewer, if you want a more detailed explanation of the archetypical mind, check out podcast episode number 6 on it. Otherwise, to sum up, if you think of your mind as an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg above water would be like your conscious mind. It's the parts that you can see and have ready access to. The part that's just below the surface of the water would be like your subconscious mind. The parts of the mind that you can't quite see that clearly or access that clearly, but you can see them somewhat. You have some access to it. You know it's there. The rest of the iceberg would be considered your unconscious mind. You really cannot see it at all. You really cannot consciously access it, but you do understand, believe that it's there. Similarly, you could say that if you go beneath deeper and deeper below the individual mind, you would eventually reach what is referred to as the racial mind, the collective subconscious of your racial or ethnic group on this planet, or quite possibly from another planet. Keep going deeper and deeper below that, and you would eventually reach the planetary mind, the collective subconscious of Mother Earth, of the Mother Gaia. Keep going deeper and deeper and deeper below that, you would get to what in the Law of One is referred to as the archetypical mind, the mind of our solar system, of our galaxy, our local part of the universe. Keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, like the roots of a tree, and eventually, supposedly, you would reach the universal or cosmic mind, the mind of the one infinite creator, the mind of intelligent infinity. That is the main premise of the Law of One, that all is one, and that we are all basically brain cells in an infinitely vast and intelligent cosmic mind. So the archetypical mind is made up of 22 images representing 7 archetypes of the mind, 7 archetypes of the body, 7 archetypes of the spirit, plus the choice, which is an archetype not of the mind, body, or spirit, but is kind of an integral part of all of them. Today we are going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these archetypes, starting with these 2. In session 94, question 26 of the Raw Contact, Ra said, "The cross formed by the living limbs of this image signifies that which is the nature of mind, body, spirit complexes and manifestation within your illusion. There is no experience which is not purchased by effort of some kind, no act of service to self or others which does not bear a price to the entity manifesting, commensurate with its purity. All things in manifestation may be seen in one way or another to be offering themselves in order that transformations may take place upon the level appropriate to the action." And in session 92, question 20, referring to the crux ansata, which is this figure that's circled here in the diagram, also known as the Egyptian Ankh symbol. Questioner, would this crux ansata then be indicating a sign of life or spirit enlivening matter? Ra, I am Ra. This is quite correct. Moreover, it illuminates a concept which is a portion of the archetype, which has to do with the continuation of the consciousness which is being potentiated incarnation beyond incarnation. And then in session 93, question 24, Ra said, the crux ansata is a part of the concept complexes of the archetypical mind, the circle indicating the magic of the spirit, the cross indicating that nature of manifestation which may only be valued by the losing. Thus, the crux ansata is intended to be seen as an image of the eternal in and through manifestation and beyond manifestation through the sacrifice and transformation of that which is manifest. Super fascinating to me. I can see how a lot of folks aren't necessarily that interested in the archetypical mind, and this might not really make any sense to them. But to me, this is really powerful, and what I mentioned in the introduction as far as what Ross said about no act of service to self or others which does not bear a price to the entity commensurate with its purity. And that there's so many uses of the cross and the 90-degree angles to represent sacrifice and transformation, I think. I don't know, what do you think, Michael? What do you make out of any of this stuff?
No, I honestly, it makes a lot of sense to me. Let me see if I can put it into words. You know, the first thing I think of is when Yeshua told us that every day we pick up our cross and we bear it. And that is the manifestation, the cross representing the manifestation, and the circle representing the continuation of the spirit. And that every day we pick that up and we bear that with us.
Yeah, great examples. And yes, I was thinking of the entity known as Jesus here very much. What do you think, Andy? And appreciate your saying Yeshua. I keep forgetting that. Yes, that is supposedly the name, or Yehoshua, that he's known by in metaphysical planes.
You go both ways.
Yeah. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, I it's wonderful, and I'm reminded of how when we can let go and constantly release over and over again, daily, hourly, our past, our stories, it then enables the creator to work through us and for new stories to unfold. And you know, this letting go of old narratives and old identities and old stories that don't serve us anymore. It is in a way a sacrifice, but at the same time, we're only letting go of something that is just not really worthy of being kept anyway, even though it does feel painful. And the crux ansata, I always think of it as if you move along the horizontal axis across time, I suppose, or the space axis, if you're moving, say, from left to right horizontally, and time follows you, you know, the up and down vertical axis. And so it's like constantly releasing and leaving behind the past, the vertical axis. And it may feel like a sacrifice, but at the same time, it's inevitable and it's necessary in order to embrace the creator's plan, I suppose.
Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. I had not really thought of it that way, but yeah, no, that makes perfect sense in terms of letting go of long-held beliefs. Can be a difficult thing, and in many ways that is a sacrifice, letting go of something that's been really a deep part of you for a long time. And that's part of what I would say is the transformation that can happen from that, commensurate with its purity, for sure. Oh, anybody else have any other thoughts on either of these passages? It is worth noting that, yes, as they're saying, there are entities with crossed legs. It's a recurring theme, a recurring symbol in the archetypical mind that does seem to be related to sacrifice and transformation. commensurate with its purity. And yeah, I can think of no better example of that than Jesus offering himself as a sacrifice for transformation and demonstrating that, as they said, yeah, it's about manifestation beyond continuation of consciousness, which is being potentiated in incarnation beyond incarnation. Quo said at some other point that Jesus has done this on many planets, not just Earth, but he always comes to a planet that's early in third density, still in the dark, and showing them the way to fourth density and showing them that there is more to life than you think. And no better illustration of that than the death card and the what I think we can interpret as resurrection card and the transformation of the spirit. It's a really beautiful, powerful thing to me to see that that's actually wired into the archetypical mind, the blueprint of our third density incarnations. You have any thoughts on that, Andy? Any thoughts on anything else before we look at something else?
Not really. I love what Michael said about, carrying the cross every day, because we are indeed carrying the cross. We're moving across time and carrying time with us, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't even make sense to myself sometimes. So
No, and I posted something in our Facebook group today, actually, about Jesus and martyrdom and the cross and such. And yes, I was reminded that there are a lot of people who, like me, have had a lot of negative associations with Christianity and the church. I've had a love-hate relationship with Christianity and the church for a long time, but I've always loved Jesus, and I still do. And I just found reading these passages gives me even more appreciation. And it's a realization that this cross can be a very powerful symbol for both positive purposes or for negative purposes. It can be a symbol of unconditional love for all, or it could be a symbol of imperial power and enslavement over people. We're certainly seeing both of those things around these days. Anybody else have anything to add before we change topics?
And just real quick on the cross, it can also just be seen as that symbol of the experience that gives rise to the continuation of moving through the densities. That, in either direction, in positive or negative, since polarity really doesn't exist. There just is the experience.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at a passage on the price of love. On November 22nd, 1992, Quo said, "You see, the sorrows of the lost love are not a negative quality, but rather praiseworthy hollowing out and deepening of the capacity to love without expectation of any return. The reason that the lost love haunts the everyday experience is that there is still much work to do in praising and seeing the treasure in the learning of how to love so deeply in the first place. Only in this kind of sorrow does the incarnate spirit become tempered and transparent to infinity. Only in the darkness of seemingly negative emotions of loss and limitation does the deep prayer, the soulful song of love, take wing and sweep the incarnate being to a point of view where the breadth of love once felt for one entity may be turned at a world dying and yearning for your deep love and compassion. Thusly, one does well not to turn from sorrow, but to turn towards it, to merge with it, and to carry this loss as a shining ornament which honors the infinite Creator." Yeah, I've been reminded so many times that that does seem to be the price that we pay for loving someone else, whether it's a spouse, a parent, a child, a sibling, a friend, a cat. Doesn't matter. The price that you pay for loving them is the broken heart that you get when you lose them. And yeah, I don't even know what else to say other than that. It's a bittersweet lesson of third density, to be sure. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on this passage?
yeah, it also makes me think of the like losing love isn't just when you lose a loved one to their passing, but there's also, in situations where love fades, like when I've had friends who've been through divorces, and I just think at some point you were deeply in love with each other, and like how has that transformed, you know? And there's so much anger and hatred and, you know, acrimony in so many of these, and I'm just like, how's that, how did this transform from, you know, such deep infatuation to such deep hatred, like, um and
And that can
then
be a really painful experience for anyone that would make them not want to have to go through that again with someone else.
yeah, and I think that would be even more difficult than the death of a loved one, because that's inevitable. But you know, like when the love transforms into something else,
Yeah.
that must be so much more painful. And also, like, how do we then turn towards it and merge with it? You know, how do we use it, and how do we reconcile with it so that it becomes like the furnace in which we can then alchemize?
More great questions. Once again, I'm going to toss the ball to Michael. What do you think, Michael? Any thoughts on Andy's insanely difficult questions?
Oh boy. Andy, I think you're too smart for your own good.
I think so too.
I don't think I
I
am.
think so.
And that is why your questions go so deep. If you could give me 2 to 3 minutes of time to just, because this hits very close to home. This was for one of the first lessons I learned. I remember this so deeply from a teacher that told me that unless you learn the deepest portions of pain, you can never learn the greatest portions of joy. And I fell in love with the mother of my children. I mean, deeply, madly in love with the mother of my children. And we had my daughter. And I loved her. And I wasn't loved back. And I wasn't loved back in a way that was decided at that time, which was the late 90s, that I would only see my daughter on the weekends, 2 weekends a month, and that I was not allowed back. I was pushed out. My heart shattered over and over. I remember being in the apartment by myself, having nothing, none of my family, nobody left. And my heart shattered over and over and over. And I remember laying on the floor, and my higher self came through. Something came through, and I don't know what it was, but it said, "Feel this." I remember those words was, "Feel this. Don't forget this. This is for you." And I said, "Okay." I remember speaking out loud, and I said, "Okay, I'll feel this. I'll go through this." So this hits very close to home. There, to feel that depth of sorrow, at least, and other people have felt other depths of sorrow, other ways of feeling it, but to feel that, this hits very close to home. This reminds me of that.
Do you wish you had chosen differently and not got into that relationship, not had that child?
No, no, I am so glad I was able to feel. I'm so glad I was able to feel it.
Yeah, what
And
a
then
beautiful story. Go ahead, Andy.
what happened after you felt it was that, like, ding, enlightenment now. Thank you. Cheers.
Not quite there. I remember falling asleep on the floor there, and I remember the next day feeling just a little better. And I remember knowing that I needed to, even though everybody was telling me just take the weekends, pay the child support, be done with it. I had an attorney that told me, I'll have you everything. I'll get you everything, because this was wrong. So this was very wrong. And I remember saying, no, I only want my son. Well, my daughter. I'm sorry, she's now my daughter. I only want my daughter. Half the time. I just want half the parenting. I don't want somebody else raising her. I want to raise her. And I got everything I wanted, which was my daughter, to raise my daughter. And the mother of my children is still in my life, and we get along very well.
What a beautiful lesson. What a beautiful teaching. And yes, I'm sure many of our viewers watching this who have been through divorce can relate to that in their own way. their own pain. Yeah, it reminds me, for folks who are old enough to have seen it, Woody Allen made a movie called Annie Hall. And he said near the end of it, and now I'm just reading directly from my notes, he said, it reminds me of that old joke. A guy walks into a psychiatrist's office and says, "Hey, doc, my brother's crazy. He thinks he's a chicken." The doctor says, "Why don't you turn him in?" The guy says, "I would, but I need the eggs." I guess that's how I feel about relationships. They're totally crazy, irrational, and absurd, but we keep going through it because we need the eggs. This was before Woody Allen got a little bit creepy, a little bit weird, but it's still a good story for sure. Anybody else have any other thoughts on this passage or anything else before we move on? Viewers, we did get your podcast survey. Thank you for everyone who filled out the podcast. And yes, we did hear more than a few people say episodes are too long. It would be really great if you could shorten it up a bit. So yeah, we're trying to shorten it up a bit. Hopefully it's not any worse than we did before. Before we go on, I did want to share a poem that I got a while ago that I have shared with many people when they lose a loved one of whatever relationship. It's certainly helped me a lot. This is from Yehuda Halevi, who is supposedly, according to my research, one of the greatest Hebrew poets of the Middle Ages. I have no idea how many other Hebrew poets in the Middle Ages there were, but according to my research, he's one of the better ones. And he said, "'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was a gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched." I get choked up every time I read that and just thinking, yeah, what a weird, strange thing that you wouldn't experience in fourth, fifth, or sixth density because they know there's no such thing as death. That's not the end, but that does seem to be part of the lessons of third density, to learn from the sorrows of the broken heart, of loving something that can die. Hey, on that cheery note, let's go ahead and take a look at a passage on the price of growth. Did you have something you wanted to say, Andy?
Yeah, a question. It's just a side note about love, right? So, he talks here in this poem about loving something that death can touch. What happens when someone is loving objects and money? Like, because I kind of think, like, how can anyone love money so much? Because money is just a means to an end. And yet there are people, I've met people, having been an investment banker in a previous life, they just really love money. People who love like ornaments and objects, and it's like, oh my God, I've got, like, my mother-in-law had, a set of cutlery that she loves so much, and I'm just like thinking now, what is happening when someone is loving an object?
What do you think, Michael?
I was thinking that sometimes it's the intention behind all of it. It's the intention behind that silverware, because she might bring it out for the people whom she loves, and only for the people whom she loves deeply. And the money obviously can go both ways, but there is so much good that can be done with it. So many people that can be helped with it. It just depends on the intention behind it. I think the material items are meaningless until you put an intention on them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think the definition I've used for love for decades that seems to work for me is caring about somebody else's happiness as much as your own. And I think that is what happens, ideally, I think, when you love someone. It means you care about them as much as you care about yourself, and maybe even a little bit more. And I don't think anybody loves money, cares about money's happiness in particular. It's just, it's probably just something that helps them get things for themselves. But certainly an object, can have emotional attachments, something that means a lot to you that came from someone you care about.
And you can use it towards somebody you love. You can use that object to do something for somebody you love.
Yeah. Yeah. Great questions, Andy. Shut the fuck up. You keep stumping the panel. It's making me feel very stupid. Really don't appreciate that. But thank you. Viewers, I'm sure appreciate it. What's that?
I feel really stupid for asking these questions because to me, it's like, I feel like loads of people know the answer, but it's not so obvious to me.
No, I don't think any of the questions that I asked are stupid, and I don't think any of the questions you asked have any obvious answers. I think they're really deep, profound questions, and I do for sure appreciate your asking, and viewers, I hope you appreciate too. Let's move on. Let us take a look at a passage on price of growth. December 9th, 2023, not that long ago, Quo said, "Growth is not easy. It is that which has what you would call a price to pay, and yet that paying of the price is the food for growth, the grist for the mill. It is the way you have chosen before incarnation to follow the ways of the third density illusion so that you may move forward at some point in your life experience from one incarnation to another into fourth density where there is no veil and where the choice has been made, where it can be refined as you move further and further through the octave of experience into the unification with the one infinite creator. Things are much easier there, but growth is much slower. The growth of your third density illusion is that which has, as we have said, a price to pay, but it is a price well worth it, well worth the effort, the spiritual effort of becoming more than you were, of moving forward on that path into unity with all those around you who are also the creator." Really beautiful passage, and I think the part that sticks out the most for me is that, yes, the paying of the price for growth is the food for growth. That's the thing that you get out of it, the price that you're paying. That's another weird paradoxical thing, I think. What do you think, Michael? Any thoughts on anything here?
Definitely saying show gratitude. I'll go ahead and beat that horse to death, showing gratitude. But it is also saying that, the balance, the knowing the spiritual, the knowing the things that Andy knows, but being able to bring it back into a reality world where people are still asleep, and to be sincere with it, to be sincere with what you have to say about it, but to be able to live with one foot in the reality world and at least pretend, you know what I mean? At least be sincere, if not serious, but to be sincere.
For sure. Yeah, I think sincerity is a key part of it, for sure. What do you think, Andy?
Okay, another stupid, really obvious question.
Don't!
Sorry, but what does it mean to grow? There's like growth as in like plants grow, right? You grow from a seed and then it blossoms into a bush or a tree, and then it eventually dies and goes back to the earth. There's that growth. And then there's the growth of like children developing and, growing from like primary school up to college and whatever. And then that growth, I'm not sure I welcome, because it's like when you're little, it's like, oh, I can't wait to be like 18 and I can go out and I'd be grown. And then like when you're 20 and you have to pay bills, it's like, oh, I'd rather have been a child. And, like, and then
I think you might be looking at it too much in terms of consensus reality and third density illusion growth. I assume in this passage they're talking more about spiritual growth as opposed to growth in the visible space-time sense.
So yeah, so I don't know. And then there's like growth as in expansion, right?
Yeah.
Like so I guess spiritual consciousness, like the expansion of our individual consciousness. But then if we're already pure consciousness of the creator, what are we growing into?
Eventually going back to that very place, but we've got 7 different levels to go through before we get to that point.
I think you're just sixth, ready to move into seventh. I honestly, I'm beginning to think that.
But then, I mean, ironically though, it's like that growth is actually kind of a shrinking in as well. Like when you're meditating, you're moving the attention inward to a smaller and smaller, more refined point. It's like,
Yeah,
the old TVs in the 80s, like when you switch it off and like all the light would shrink into one tiny point and
right.
fade. Do you remember those TVs, the old
Yeah,
analog televisions?
I'm
It's
old
kind
enough to
of,
remember that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I mean, that's kind of growth, but it's also a growth inward. I don't know.
Well, it reminds me of the discipline of the personality, which Ross said has three parts: know yourself, accept yourself, and become the creator. Because when you look inward enough at yourself on the deepest, 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 deepest level, you find that you are, in fact, the one infinite creator. And I think everything part of our life is a journey from starting as the one infinite creator to being a holographic spark of the creator being flung out into infinity through like the Big Bang, and having to go through the whole journey through all the densities to eventually come back to the creator and to share with creator what you learned in your experiences. And that's how creator learns more about itself. And yeah, it's crazy. It's a wild thing to think about for sure. And we seem to be still, at least at third density, really early in the journey. What do you think, Michael? Any thoughts on that? Or
Oh,
anything else?
honestly, my thoughts on it is just yes, we are in the third density, and it is difficult, but every moment has love, and there's so much experience to be gained here. And once it's over, it's over. Once this third density incarnation is over, it's done. So, and it does not last that long in terms of cosmic, it does not last that long. So I think what joy we can get out of it, we should try. And to be grateful.
So you agree with Quo and Latwii that we're ingrates, that we need to be more grateful for the suffering.
To be grateful. That's
Yeah.
I think we were talking about that. My morning gratitudes, and that's a hard time to do them. But yeah, just to think of all the things that I'm grateful for, and I'm sure I miss some things, but just to remind myself of what I'm grateful for as I'm getting out of bed.
Yeah.
It's 30 seconds to a minute just to think of those things first.
Yeah, beautiful sentiment. And yeah, it does remind me of another passage I read where Quo said something to the effect of, don't be in such a hurry to get back to the creator. Creator wants to know about every step of your journey, all the twists and turns and apparent mistakes and things are how creator learns more about itself. And creator learns from the negative entities too. All the people who seem to be committing horrific acts of atrocity and cruelty to others, it's still creator doing those things to itself in order to understand the extremes of both the light and the dark, the
It
positive and the
is.
Negative. Yeah.
The catalyst being created right now, and yeah. Well, I don't want to get political. I'm sorry. I won't get
Yeah.
political.
Yeah, we don't need to do that. Sorry about that. Uh, Really great conversation. As always, I appreciate hanging out with you guys, and you always think of different things than I had. And you always ask questions that never even occurred to me. So appreciate how we're all learning and growing together. Any other thoughts on this passage before we look at our last set of passages? Let's take a look at a couple passages on what is referred to as birthright. On January 6, 2001, Quo said, "We are not in third density bodies. We do not have the right to bring light into planet Earth. Only those who have paid the price of flesh, who have come into the darkness of the illusion of Earth, have the right to open their hearts and ask to become crystals for transducing light." And on November 13th, 2003, Quo said, "As the 75,000-year cycle that has been talked about often in this group was coming to its end, the cry was going out from those of planet Earth and from the planet itself, a cry of suffering and sorrow, a cry of seeking and hoping, and it is in response to the suffering of Earth that you decided to apply for the privilege of incarnation and what this entity who channels would call the heart of the beast, or the belly of the beast, I believe. The crowded byways of your globe, in which the business of humankind has for so long included trauma, hardship, war, disease, and suffering of all kinds. You yearn to help. You examine what could be done without coming into incarnation, and you were not satisfied. You truly wished to make a difference, as did this instrument, as did all those within the circle, and you knew that you could not make that difference unless you had the right to it by birth, and so you took birth. Really, such beautiful passages, and the idea that our friends in the Confederation would love to lighten up Earth energies, but apparently they can't. Only those who took the leap of faith beyond the veil of forgetting and incarnated here in the flesh have the right to transduce light, to receive the love and light, the Creator, and to bless it and send it forth. It's a really beautiful thing. And I would hope everyone who's watching this on video realizes, wow, okay, I paid a high price to be here. I hope I'm getting my money's worth out of this ride for sure. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on either of these passages?
Yeah, I'm thinking of light in terms of illumination, but light also in terms of lightheartedness and, because the Crow and like the channelings, they do talk about humor a lot and, and the light touch and just bringing levity to things, I think can help a lot.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I really appreciate comedians, stand-up comics. They're like superhuman. It's like to be able to talk to people for an hour and make them laugh during a time when it seems like really hard to laugh at things. That's like a superpower for sure. And I would agree. It's definitely lightening planetary energies, beautiful ways.
That's why I only get my news from The Onion now. I don't follow any other news sources.
It's as good as any other, I think. What do you think, Michael? Any thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is a beautiful passage. The privilege of incarnation. They cannot do anything from up there. They cannot do anything unless called. And that is the privilege of incarnation, to go into the belly of the beast and from there make the call. And then we get into the law of squares. And I think this is where us as wanderers begin to get together, and it's all happening for a reason. Everybody being able to get together on Zoom and speak to one another, and we can make that call for that light, and that's how we can make that change.
It's a great opportunity, and it's a birthright that we paid a high price for to be here to be able to do that. Sure. Yeah, I appreciate the word transducing in crystals. They have used that terminology many times in many different channeling sessions, saying that we are crystals and that we're always receiving the love and light from the one infinite Creator. It's passing through our energy bodies. It's being distorted by all our different chakras and energy centers, and then it goes out to the world. So just the act of existing and being here means you're transducing that light. You're converting it into another form. And just the act of blessing it as you do it gives it an extra little boost that only entities who incarnated here have the right to do that. So it's a beautiful privilege and power and an honor for sure. Are there any other thoughts on this passage before we wind things down? Well, I want to thank you, and I did want to say thank you to you who are watching this on video, who I may or may not ever meet in person. Thank you for taking that leap of faith to go into the belly of the beast, to go behind the veil of forgetting, and to bring light into the world. According to YouTube analytics, there's only like 20 or 30 people who watch these episodes this far. So if you're one of those 20, 30 people, you are part of our spiritual community in time space, regardless of how far apart we may appear to be in space or time. So thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for being part of this spiritual community. Where do we go from here? What are some takeaway lessons we might have from our hour-long discussion today? I have 6 for your consideration. 1, The pearl of great price is hidden in third density. Remember that. It's a treasure to seek. The greater the purity, the higher the price for whatever you do. Sacrifice and transformation are wired into our archetypical mind, Jesus being a great example of that. The price of loving someone is knowing that at some point you will lose them or appear to lose them in the third density. Only those who have paid the price of incarnating in third density are allowed to lighten earth energies. So you paid a high price to be here. Make sure you get your money's worth. What do you think? Michael, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add or final thoughts on this?
Just something that I heard the other day that was very profound, and it was this. It was that every morning you wake up, you have everything you already need to face every catalyst you're going to face.
It's great encouragement. Easy to forget, for sure. Andy?
I think these quotes are perfect, and it reminds me of, how everything, like, the greatest gems are hidden in, like, the most non-obvious places. The greater the suffering, the more precious the jewel that's lying beneath it. And and I feel like the creator often hides wisdom in the most foolish circumstances. And there's so many instances where there's great suffering, and yet the greater the suffering, the greater the light of the courage and the compassion that emerges from that suffering becomes.
Well said. Should have had you on the panel for our suffering episode that I believe we just uploaded recently. But yeah, indeed, you really cannot know how good things are unless you know how bad they're not. So if nothing else, the suffering can help you appreciate the good times better. Well said, panel. As always, appreciate your love and wisdom. Did want to let viewers know that if you enjoyed this podcast episode, you might want to check out our episode on breath work. It's about the many ways that we breathe in and out, how that can actually make a big difference in lightening earth energies in fourth density. Really beautiful, powerful teachings there. It is a muchly underviewed and underappreciated episode. I encourage you to check it out. Also, the episode we did on fearlessness, about taking that leap of faith and learning how to live in a world without fear, in a world that seems designed to keep us afraid all the time. One original thought, great episode about that journey that we make from the Big Bang flung out to holographic sparks of the universe to go through that long journey back to the one infinite creator, the one original thought. Episode on transformation, about how our personal transformations are tied in with the transformation of the planet to fourth density. And the dance, about learning how to dance with the different energies in our lives and catalysts and everything else. And the admission price for getting into the dance. Having said that, it is time for our pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our podcast, just to end our otherwise serious discussion on a somewhat lighter note, and maybe look for Law of One connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was about the price you pay, today's pop quiz is going to be about some of these folks. What do you think? Andy, Michael, what do these folks all have in common?
They all died too early.
Indeed. Yeah, this is all about celebrities who died young, that being, I would say, the price they paid for the transformations they brought about in their lives. You guys have any favorites here? Any particular faces up there, especially near and dear to you?
Bruce Lee, for one. Yeah. Michael Jackson, Robin Williams.
Yeah, nice. Andy, any special people up here to you?
I'd say Richard Pryor is probably one of my favorites, and Jim Morrison. I was obsessed with him as a teenager.
Yeah, I loved listening to the music from the 60s and the hippie movement. That was a big part of my spiritual awakening, for sure. You who are watching this on video, who are your favorite people? Who means the most to you? Maybe we'll ask about them. Panelists, I'm going to ask you a few multiple choice questions about a few of these people, see how many you can answer correctly. Panelists, go ahead, say your answers out loud so our viewers can hear you in space-time. You who are watching this on video in the near or distant future, say your answers out loud so we can hear you through time-space. As always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. You guys ready for your first question? First question. Chadwick Boseman starred in which of the following? A, Black Panther, B, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, C, 42, or D, Just Mercy? What do you think, panelists?
I've only seen A and B. I've not seen C or D. I'm gonna go for all of them because I know what you're like.
You think you know what I'm like. You have been on this rodeo more than a couple of times. What do you think, Michael?
I would say E as well.
Nice. Correct answer is A and C. He was in the first Black Panther movie, but he died before the second one was made. So he was not in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, except in the memories and hearts of all the characters who were in many ways grieving his loss. He was in the movie 42, playing the role of Jackie Robinson. He was in the movie Marshall, about the first Black Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall. And he did play James Brown in Get On Up. So, yeah, really amazing individual who really seemed to be breaking a lot of barriers in his own way and made movies about other people breaking barriers. But, yeah, what a special person. And to go through, apparently he was fighting cancer as he was making that movie and somehow managed to do it. But beautiful, for sure. How about another one? How about this? How did Selena Quintanilla die? Was it A, plane crash, B, drug overdose, C, suicide, or D, murder? Do you guys know who Selena is?
I don't.
Obviously can't choose all four for this one.
Everyone who is a Latin music star today would probably point to Selena as being one of the first people who took like traditional Mexican music sounds, but kind of freshened them up for pop audiences, and was a huge thing, both in her music and a fashion icon. Apparently she had lots of boutiques in her name that had a lot of the kind of clothes that she wore on stage.
I'm going to say B.
Nice.
I'm just going to guess A.
Nice. Correct answer is D. She was shot and killed at age 23 by Yolanda Saldivar, who just happened to be the president of her fan club. It happened at a Days Inn motel in Corpus Christi, Texas. Apparently, Saldivar was actually a close friend of hers. They knew each other well and trusted each other well. And she had been managing Selena's clothing boutiques for years, but apparently she was embezzling money, and lots of other people warned her about it, but Selena just would not trust. She stayed by her friend until she realized that was true, and when she confronted her in a hotel, apparently she was shot and killed. So tragic ending, but she has certainly transformed Latin music and is an inspiration to many, many people of Latin descent. How about this one? True or false, Marilyn Monroe helped boost Ella Fitzgerald's career?
Yes, I would say true. I think I've heard some stories or read about it.
I did too. I heard something about that. I would say true.
Yeah, it is true. And I only learned about this fairly recently, but apparently she got her booking at the Macombo, a premier Hollywood nightclub. The owner didn't want to book Ella Fitzgerald due to her race and perceived lack of glamour. So Monroe called the Macombo owner herself and promised to sit at the front table every night if she was booked, leveraging her stardom to get all the media there to take pictures and bringing people in. So, yeah, a really cool thing that she didn't have to do that, but I guess she was just a special person who wanted to use her power to help others that way. Which is super fascinating, since she has pretty much provided the template for so many other blonde actresses and entertainers since then. Panelists, do you recognize many or any or all of these faces, these people here? Who can you name? 1 point for each person you guessed correctly.
Britney Spears,
That's one.
Madonna,
That's two.
Margot Robbie,
That's three.
Taylor Swift.
That's four.
I don't really know the rest.
Erica Kirk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
That's all. That's all I
Pretty
got.
good. Got Kelly Clarkson, Charlize Theron, Sabrina Carpenter, Shakira, Pam Anderson, Carrie Underwood, Gwen Stefani, Erica Kirk, Megyn Kelly, and Sydney Sweeney doing a barely concealed neo-Nazi thing about people with blonde hair and blue eyes having superior genes. Weird thing. And pretty much every Fox News commentator, I believe, since then. How about last question? True or false? Robin Williams had a clause in his contracts that required the hiring of homeless people for production jobs. True or false?
I want it to be true.
It's true. It was true.
It is true. Yeah, indeed. He just seemed to have a very special empathy with them, and he wanted to give them dignity and work and income rather than just giving them charity money. So supposedly helped over 1,500 people in that situation. So yeah, my God, what a beautiful soul. I just really love that person so much. So few people were able to go as far into the light and as far into the dark as he did, being both really heroic, really funny characters, and really dark villains, I believe, in Insomnia and 1 Hour Photo. You guys have any favorite Robin Williams movies or anything?
I love The Birdcage. It's so funny. Have you seen it? Where he plays the dad. I love the ending where Gene Wilder has to get in
Gene
drag.
Hackman. Yeah,
Gene Hackman, I mean, not one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great movie.
So good.
You have any favorites, Michael?
Oh yeah, 4 on this list. What Dreams May Come, Aladdin, just for sheer comedy, Good Will Hunting, and Insomnia. I mean, those just such range of acting that he had. You know,
such great movies. I think my favorite of his was The Fisher King, where he did actually play a homeless person with a tragic backstory, and it's really funny and it's also really bittersweet.
I've never seen that. I'll have to check it out.
Great movie. Highly recommend it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. If you're a Robin Williams fan, I think you would really like that movie. Panelists, as always, want to thank you for being here and for sharing your love and wisdom with everybody. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or maybe very distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, Namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Bye.